This video is part of a series of videos I'm doing where I'm trying to resolve a misfire that I have with my Ecotec 3.8 litre motor in the Toyota Land Cruiser Bandera. So I've been working on the spark plug side of things, and I've done a number of things, and in this video I'm going to talk about that and help you understand spark plugs at a bit deeper level. Here at MadMatt 4Drive, I am all about educating and building the four-wheel drive community. And that's what we're going to be doing in this video. So I'd love you to hit that subscribe button or hit the like if you're watching on Facebook. So spark plugs. This problem started to present itself probably about 6 months ago when all of a sudden I developed a misfire under load, which straight away says to me it's something in the ignition system, and it came down to being spark plugs. And what was happening was the spark plugs, particularly on the right bank, were fouling up. And they're fouling up, I believe, because essentially oil is getting past the valve stem seals and contaminating the O2 sensor, which is then telling the ECU incorrect information, and the ECU is pumping too much fuel into the right-hand bank of my engine. My grandfather said to me when I was a young apprentice mechanic, he said, "Matthew, you need to start with the simple things first." So, not being a complete expert on these motors, I did exactly that. And I started with the spark plugs. I just changed them out and we went, and it ran great for a couple of months, and then the misfire came back. So that's when I thought, right, there's something else going on here. So the very first thing I did was I changed the heat range of the spark plugs. I put a colder plug in. What does that mean? It means that the spark plug is actually going to run hotter. It's a bit backwards. I don't quite know why they do it that way, but hey, it means that the spark plug runs hotter. Therefore, the spark plug has a better ability to self-clean and burn off any sooty build-ups and carbon build-ups that happen on the spark plugs. The number that designates the heat range is this number 5 there, and those spark plugs went in, and everything was great for, again, a couple of months, and then she started to misfire again. And I pulled them out, and these plugs were as dirty as anything. I thought, right, we're going to have to dig deeper. And that's when knowing that the engine's been, burning a little bit of engine oil and so on, I thought that's going to be the root cause, so we're going to resolve it. So what I did in the meantime, just to keep me running, and this is a great tip you could use if you were out fall driving and you started to have a misfire and it was caused by the spark plugs, I closed the gap up. Now these spark plugs are meant to run at 1.3, which is the spacing between there, and I've closed them up. What that does is that it closes the distance between the electrode in the center and the earth pole on the outside, and it makes it easier for the spark to jump across. Therefore, it will resolve that misfire issue to some extent. And because what you got going on here is the coil is making electricity, and it's shoving a whole stack of volts up here. It comes up the middle through the spark plug, and it has to jump the gap to create the spark plug. It's exactly like lightning, just not quite as powerful. So the spark jumps the gap there and ignites your fuel and air mixture. When that spark plug gets dirty, it's higher resistance, it's harder for the electricity to get across, and it stops working. And so by closing the gap up, I just helped the spark jump the gap. And I closed them up, and they still misfired a little bit, but it did come good, and it was certainly drivable. So I've been driving like that for about a week or so, and it has actually cleaned these spark plugs up a little bit. They're not as sooty as they were when I took them out a week ago, but they're still not healthy. I've still got that misfire, and it all comes down to what I believe being the oil that the engine is burning. So let's just have a look at how we check a spark plug. So this is a brand new spark plug. Now I'm going back to the correct heat range, which is the number 6 for this engine. So we've got the number 6 going in, and whenever you're putting new spark plugs in, it's always really important that you check the gap here. Now these are specified, as I say, for 1.3. So I've got my feeler gauges here, which are little bits of metal that are perfectly machined thickness, and it's got it written on there what that thickness is. It's both written in imperial, which is 1/1000th of an inch, or thou as we call it. So it's 0.019, and you know, that's the imperial measurement, and then the metric measurement is 0.483 millimeters. So I've got two feeler gauges together to give me 1.3, and you put it in the gap there between the electrode and the earth pole, and you want to just make sure that that spark plug is actually gapped correctly. Nowadays, generally they are correct out of the factory, but I have seen them incorrect from time to time. If you needed to adjust it, the simplest way is on a firm surface like a vise or something. You just give it a little bit of a tap like that, and it'll just close that up, or you can very carefully pry that open if you needed to make it wider. And that's how you're going to gap it. The other thing I'd like to say about spark plugs, there's basically two types. There's this type here which has a tapered seat, and on the box it will give you a specification for how tight to tighten the spark plug up. Plugs don't need to be tightened up really tight, and it says 1/16th of a turn on there. So it's like, turn it that much, that's tight. Okay, you'll be surprised that you're not going to reef on these things, but you over tighten that because they're exposed to so much heat, they can seize up in your cylinder head and strip the thread, and let me tell you, then you're in grief. You've got a real problem. There's another type of spark plug, and you'll see it's got like a washer on here, and it crushes as you tighten the spark plug up. So with those ones, generally it's about half a turn. You might go to 3/4 of a turn on those sort of spark plugs. But again, it'll tell you on the box how tight to make them, and that'll make sure that you never have a drama when it comes to removing them from your engine. Enjoy the rest of these videos, and I hope you really learned something today as I delve into this motor. Hopefully by the end of today I'll have a sweet running motor again. That'll be good. All right, make sure you subscribe, make sure you hit that, watch that second video as well, or any of the other in this series.